I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed." And on the pedestal these words appear: "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. So this is a poem called Ozymandias, written by a poet Percy Bysshe Shelley in the early 19th century. Some of the language may seem a bit old-fashioned, but it's held up pretty well over the years. And we're going to use it today to talk about a second form of invention in college writing around the notions of recall and reflect. And this is a kind of writing you do typically in literature classes, art classes, sometimes when you're doing personal essays. You're writing about your own autobiography, and you're trying to figure out, in all of the experiences you've had, which are the ones that are important, that you have, that give you clues to new learnings about yourself or about what it is to be a human being. And this is kind of at the center of the whole journey of the humanities, which is to get deeper and deeper into your understanding of who you are as a person and how you interact with society and the various institutions that we all live among. So we're here with Sal, and I are going to do an experiment here where I'm going to ask Sal to do some recalling and reflecting in relation to this poem. But before I say anything, just overall reaction to the poem as I was reading it. Any particular reaction?
Yeah, I like it. If kind of my understanding or my impression is right, I mean, it kind of talks about something that I always like to talk to my friends and family about, is this whole notion of people being obsessed with their kind of their achievements in the near term and their kind of ego gratification. But it's we're all these little animals on this little planet, and we have a very small lifespan, and we're going to go away, and that stuff is kind of silly in the scheme of things.
In the bigger things. Okay. And this, by the way, the visual I always get from this is Burning Man. So I'm thinking about somebody ought to put this statue out at Burning Man one year and sort of
That's interesting. When I see this, I actually think of Wall Street.
Wow.
Or I think of kind of the power brokers or politicians, and I think of kind of how they view their world today versus what it really will be in the long term.
Yeah. By the way, when you said that to me, the other thing that just called to my mind were the Oracle cylinders as we drive up 101.
I used to work there.
So my name is King of Kings, whatever. Okay. Well, okay. So here's the kind of when you have a poem like this and you say, well, okay, so my teacher, the class assignment is to write something about this poem. Where would I start? So what I like to ask people to do is to pick out. Just close your eyes. Don't look at the poem itself. Just thinking about it as you heard it. What's the first detail in the poem that comes to mind?
And my eyes are closed right now. I know people can't see me, but they are genuinely closed. And if I remember, there was kind of this, and I kind of these two trunks and the sand, and we're kind of in this very desolate environment. Is kind of what my memory of kind of how it was all starting.
Gotcha. Keep your eyes closed again. Mm-hmm. Another detail from the poem, just a second one that comes to mind.
And then it starts talking about something kind of laying in the sand, and my brain was like, is this a person? Is this a thing? I at first started to imagine it was a person.
Gotcha. Person or thing. Gotcha. Okay. Anything else from the poem that comes to mind?
The broken visage of something. I remember that word in particular. Yeah, I mean, those are kind of the stuff that directly jumped out.
Let's use those three things.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you're looking at those three things, and let's circle them on the poem. So that one caught you. Two vast and trunkless legs of stone.
Vast and trunkless legs of stone.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't actually capture the stone
Okay,
part the first time I heard it.
Well, then it's okay. Stay with what you actually captured then.
Yeah.
Okay, so just those stuff you captured, and then the second thing you said was something between lifeless things and And,
Well,
or is
well,
it
I saw
what was-
this a half sunk Shattered Visions
Okay,
Lies.
okay. Shattered Visions
Visions
Lies. Okay, that one. Okay, good.
And on this part, I was like, what are they talking about? Is it a thing, a person? Who knows? And then yeah, the shattered visage. That was the other
Okay,
thing.
okay. And then I underlined lifeless things because you said you didn't know if it's a person or a thing, and of course by that time, it's pretty clear that it's a thing.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Although not
no,
completely.
no, it wasn't. Interesting. Maybe not.
Oh, well, by the time it started talking about the pedestal where the words appear, I was like, maybe it's
Yeah.
a dead body of some
Okay,
kind or something.
okay,
But
okay.
yes, by the time it was a pedestal,
Okay,
these words,
okay,
then I kind of
okay.
I understood.
Okay. So what's interesting? So if we look at this thing, we say, okay, what is it about those images that you think is striking?
I guess having random, just kind of having a random object in kind of this desert is almost more lonely than just a desert.
Yeah. Because okay, so object in the desert, right? Okay,
I mean, you can't be lonely if there's there's nothing there.
right.
If it's just a desert, there's no. But yes, it's just there's this one thing standing in the desert.
So we talked when I asked you your first reaction. You were reacting a lot to the bottom half of the poem. How does the idea of lonely relate to the bottom half of the poem in your mind?
Well, it's at the time, from the poem's point of view, there's just this relic is sitting here in the desert, and it's clearly just this trace of this maybe once great civilization. And there's this irony that on that relic is written, "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings." I mean, this isn't someone with a small ego, right? He's not just saying king; he's the King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Like, how intimidating am I? Like, I'm a big deal. And so there at one point, this is evidence of this maybe great empire, this egotistical king who thought he was almost a god. But it shows how futile his words were and how silly they seem from the perspective of now.
Okay, so I think, and that's clearly, I think that's exactly what I'm pretty sure that's what the effect Shelley wanted to create. So now you say, okay, but Shelley wrote this poem in let's say 1810. That's within 10 years of being right. And it's 2013. I mean, why do we care? Why do you care? Why does this touch you?
Because these are still kind of themes that are alive in our world. I mean, you see people who are very much driven by empire. I mean, the 1800s was a period literally of empire for the world, and so but today. You still have people kind of blindlessly pursuing empire and numbers and money. And as you say, you don't take a moving truck to your grave.
right. Yes, right. You're the bank. But it's interesting that we've relocated it. So this was in a political military sphere.
Yeah.
You and I both intuitively relocated it to Silicon Valley, and frankly, at least I internalized that to the tech industry in particular and the financial services industry. I mean, those were the two that you were in financial services, right?
Oh, well, both. I mean, tech first,
yeah.
and then I worked in finance. And I mean, I tend to give tech a little bit more of a free pass because I do think that especially Silicon Valley is more focused with impact and innovation than necessarily empire and legacy. While so not all. I mean, these are huge stereotypes. I know some very well balanced people in the financial world. But a lot of what you see, I mean, even when you go to a place like New York, you see the skyscrapers, and these are really kind of shrines to ego.
Yeah.
You don't have to build it that tall.
Yeah. I think it's great, and to me, so the shattered visage, for me, is the exact. It's a face, which would be a person, but it's broken and it's in stone and it's in the sand, and it's that image of what ego can do to personality. I mean, or if you freeze on ego and don't let. It kind of turns you into a lifeless thing. At least that may not be you. That's probably me editing over you. But so what we're doing here, and we're going to bring this to a close, is so there was a poem here. It created an impression. When you listen to a poem or see a work of art, you get an impression. And part of what the exercise of literary criticism or artistic criticism is to recall the impression by coming back with the details that stand out most in your mind. They're the ones that somehow are key to the depth of the impression. And then just just speculating about them to say, what does that mean to me? What can I learn about myself or about this experience that I didn't know before? And then use that. So let me just ask you as a way of closing, if you had to step back for this and say, this poem obviously confirmed a number of things you've felt. Is there anything about the poem you say, well, but I don't know that I looked at it that way, quite that way before? Is there something I learned from this poem specifically? Or is this poem more just one more example of something I already knew?
I think it's very in line with kind of how I often kind of, when I get self-righteous with my friends, I'll now take out Ozymandias and just read it to them, and then like, okay, who wants dinner now? Yeah, I mean, but I think it has a power to it that just saying like why we can talk with our friends over coffee and say, hey, why are we really here, and why are we pursuing all this material stuff, and why are we so concerned about our titles and our position and our power and all of that? But I think a poem like this has a nice way of really putting it in perspective.
That's great. Okay.